This is Rauta from the Finnish metal festival Steel Chaos. And look who we ran into.
Who could ever guess?
Would you please introduce yourself and tell us what the hell you're doing here?
Oh fuck, that's a very good copycat start, you know.
And all that stuff.
I'm Cherry, the showrunner of this channel, Rauta. I also happen to play in a band called Nightside, I guess that's the reason why we're here. We played yesterday as the first band, whereas you are going to be the last one, so in a way, circle is complete.
Indeed.
So welcome to the show.
And a lot of your viewers maybe have been wondering if you are musically active. Do you get a lot of questions about this?
Actually, it's a pretty interesting one that you get to ask, because a lot of people don't have any fucking clue that I actually used to be and still am active in a couple of bands. And some people are, aware of that. And then they are like, hey, what about this band and blah, blah, blah. We're going to see your show because you're Rauta and all stuff. And I'm like, you know, these are two separate entities. Like whatever I'm doing in the terms of like this, running this video and all, it's a very different entity than, you know, doing a band. I mean, it comes from the same spring in the essence, like whatever our fucked up minds do as, you know, as a musician yourself, we have this kind of a demonic possession in our heads, whether it's about writing lyrics, writing songs and all that stuff, or fucking doing a channel with reviews and interviews. It all kind of comes from the very same spring in a way. And so obviously people who wanna know, check out things, and then when they kind of connect the dots, then they're like, hey, I gotta check out this band. I mean, if I get to like disrespect his band because he told that this and that album was fucked up or whatever, like kind of
Finland.
Gotta pay the debts, you know, so to say. I'm like, yeah, bring it on, motherfucker. That's why we play a show that I cannot kind of get to, you know, show our own band, whatever we're doing, and so that we're not full of shit. I mean, of course you can say that if you really honestly feel that, but the point here is, much like you, we're now newbies to the genre, we're newbies to the whole scene.
Exactly.
So this is all the same continuation in a way.
But the name of the band?
Nightside, yeah.
Yes.
That's a very good point. So easy to kind of forget to mention things like that. Yeah. Nightside has been around since 1996. And there was just like some 20 years gap when the band was kind of frozen, split up in essence. I mean, after 2003, things pretty much went the way that people went to different directions. Like, I don't know, there were just too many lineup changes.
Yeah.
You know personally
how
fucked that can really get things going on. And so we went
20 years, did you always knew that you were gonna keep going on?
That wasn't kind of obvious. I think the original idea to do comeback came like maybe 15 years after the split up. Like the drummer who was the founder of the band. I mean, basically Nightside started as his kind of solo project in a way, because he has this kind of a classical training.
What year was that?
Huh?
Which year did he start it?
1996. Yeah. This was the early. I joined like a few months later. I am the original vocalist, but I mean, I wasn't there since like the day one. So anyway, it started like, because like I said, he's the kind of a classical trained music drummer first, but he handles his keyboard, listens to, for example, you know, classical music. Mm. So that's kind of where the symphonic or more like keyboard-driven black metal kind of takes its form, takes its inspiration. You know, classical composing, and of course when you blend that with the background, I mean, much like the Norwegian scene, we both share death metal background, thrash metal background, classic heavy metal background. So when you put it all together, and then like two different guys are like, hey, we understand, we have the chemistry, the same wavelength.
So he did the music and all the music you did? All the lyrics?
No, I mean, originally I think he was the main composer. But when people started joining band, suddenly the guitarist would bring some ideas and bass players. But like I said, we had a lot of lineup changes, and that effectively led to disbanding the band in 2003. So he mentioned sometimes around 2019 or so, like we should do kind of a like comeback gig or whatever. That wasn't like planned to do like a real comeback, I think. But sometimes things take time. Sometimes it's drunk talk and blah, blah, blah. You know how it goes.
Oh, yeah.
So then a couple of years later, we're like, should we really fucking do it like properly? Not just like one gig and then forget about it, but
totally get
maybe
reformed.
like if that feels right, if that feels like we're on the right track, maybe we could actually, bring music as well.
But the guys that you had for this concert, have they been in the band in the past, or are they?
Yeah. All the guys in the band, I mean, they have their own. Some have still other projects. For example, the lead guitarist still have a couple of other bands.
Have we heard of some of them, maybe?
Seidur might ring a name, ring a bell. I think they made like one album and a couple of demos, something like that. But they haven't been, that active really. But all these other guys, and Warhorn, where our bassist and the rhythm guitarist is from, they used to basically do the similar stuff that Nightside early 2000s. For whatever reasons, they're rather promising. Black metal kind of also got disbanded. Who knows what reasons. But when we got these like guys from like two original Nightside members, me and the drummer, and the guitarist and the bass player, and suddenly things started to click. And then the keyboard person who was originally more like a session member, live member, he comes also very similar background. He had his own band, so suddenly we have like 6 creative minds in the place. And like, okay, means that I'm not gonna probably bring so much like riffs and my own ideas with the guitar and whatever in the play, because we already have 5 guys bringing stuff in, and it's kind of essential that everybody understands that we're not gonna abandon some 90s style, because that's essentially what we are. So people were like kind of pricking the right box in their heads, and like, this is what we need to do. We need to understand what Nightside is about, not change it too much, because there are lots of
stick to the original idea.
Yeah, because you really can't change the style too much and keep the same name. So if we cannot make that work, then we're gone for good.
Yeah,
but
good
things started to work nicely. The first live, I think, was pretty good, considering that it was first time in almost 20 years.
Yeah, and that was the other day in Estonia, was it?
No, that was our actually third gig so far in 2 years. So that was like kind of our, how do you say, in our last final rehearsals in a way, compared to this one, which was our, I think, the biggest performance so far. Even though we're starting band and all that stuff, but I mean, it really helped us to figure like what fine adjustments we need to do, like where to have these breaks between the songs, like everybody gets to
all the details.
These final fucking tunings. And
but everybody seems hungry for more. So what's next on your schedule?
Well, in a way, this was kind of a great mid-ending point for us, in the sense that now we get to focus on the new material, and we're already preparing for our second album. We have new songs ready, so we have already demoed them, and we're aiming to finish the album by the end of the year and get it out in some time 2024.
Could you reveal the record company?
It's gonna be Reading Through Fire, and now we get a guest. Okay, yeah, move on. See you someone.
Say what he has to say.
He probably needs more drink. But yeah, it's gonna be through Purity Through Fire, the German label, which actually puts out quite a lot of Finnish black metal. I don't know why they're so specialized or interested in stuff, but I got to know the label boss back in 2019, so quite a few years ago, and he was one of those guys, in one of those labels that were like, hey, we could really work this out. We could really do the album the way that it's gonna be Nightside-like release. And I like the German efficiency in a way, like they're really fucking strict. So
always count on that.
Yeah.
But what about your very first releases? You mentioned a demo in '97, right?
Yeah, that was the very first demo. I mean,
Is
everything.
that being re-released, maybe? Is that maybe being re-released, or?
Well, yeah, actually, it got a tape re-release. Nothing beyond that, because the songs were then released on the first album as well, which came out on LP quite a bit later on, and it was suddenly all sold out. I mean, the Goathorex
Too
label.
late for me to get one? Too late for me to get one?
Until we get the new re-release by Period
still
Trier,
yours.
then you will get your copy. But yeah, I mean, the demo, we had kind of like this weird idea. I mean, as you know, we're quite young guys in our early 20s, and our drummer, he decided that we would go to Tico Studios in Kemi, which is very far in the north. The very same place where bands like Impale, Nazarene, and lots of those bands went to do their early stuff. So it had kind of a cult value already.
The same engineer?
Yeah. He's a legendary guy, and I don't know what gave us this idea that we should drive some 10 hours up in north, go to this rather, well, somewhat expensive considering it's still a demo. And of course the production is fantastic, but I would say like, yeah, there are faults in vocals and whatever. So kind of a weird idea. Go all the way there.
Good idea.
In a sense, yeah, in a way. Yeah. But yeah, that came out in 1987 and kind of a classic cover in a way, kind of a timeless like Burn Church. Like what you would expect from a Nordic black metal band. Yeah, there's a Burn Church.
90s,
yeah, exactly.
Of course.
But yeah, that kind of gave us the idea that, hey, we could actually, you know, make this happen, and then full album followed a couple of years later, and then it was kind of sad that we all actually split up because of various reasons.
Well, it seems you all missed it.
Yeah. So we never became anything like big or anything like that, but in a way, I think for us,
you needed a break also.
Well, yeah, and like I said, people went to different directions with other bands, so it was like nobody quit it for good. It was just guys going different ideas.
What did you do in the meantime?
Well, I had this other band, Annihilatus, on the side, which started in 1999, and that was much raw, much more primitive, kind of a boneheaded black metal, which was very different from this rather melodic, fast tempo keyboard.
And which year did it start?
Annihilatus started in 1999.
Yeah.
And that also went on hiatus a little bit later, around 2003 also. But later than Nightside, I had already left the band before that. That also came back in like 2016. Suddenly we were like, what the fuck? We need to make more music. Like ideas have been going on in the heads. And the other guys, they had some other projects. Some went kind of outside black metal. Some went for who knows what. And I don't know, suddenly years went past. You know, everybody got older and things went weird directions and then started getting back again.
Yeah.
So I don't know, a lot of things kind of changed, and one way, not that much. I mean, suddenly you felt the chemistry is right there and you could do the
and
music
you still
all
want
over
to keep
again.
the same style, also not too much developed or changed in different direction.
Yeah, and I mean, the funny anecdote, I don't know if this is funny actually, but I realized when we did the gig yesterday was that when Nightside started in 1996, I mean the same anti-Christian, anti-religious themes in general, of course, included both bands, but when Nightside was founded in 1996, of course the original idea was very much like we're about black metal, we are all about fighting Christianity and all that bullshit, what comes with religious thoughts and ideas to people, you know. Sometimes people think to forget that, you know, religions are not there anymore. They say like, yeah, it's not a real enemy anymore. It's not affecting anymore. It's not changing things because you don't see people put, you know, like beheaded and all that stuff. And like, I don't know, it never went away. I mean, people are becoming more secular in a way, but still, the church has a lot of power with politics, with money. They are fucking everywhere with the tentacles and all that stuff. So those ideas never went away. I mean, we're still having the same ideas like, you should get out of this fucking country, out of this fucking Nordic area, like, go home, religion. Fucking die already. We don't need that fucking Jesus bullshit here. And what people say
it's all from some desert far away anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's not part of this original culture here. And I still feel like it's in a way invading our everyday lives. We have certain habits that came with the whole bullshit. And I think it's still vital, important for us to remind that bullshit is not part of it. I feel like it's a virus, and we need a kind of a treatment. I know.
Like you said, not many bands are focusing on it anymore. So
yeah, a lot of people want to go different directions, and while I am totally okay with it, I'm not saying that everybody should be focusing on, say, religions and all that bullshit. But I also think it's a very, very essential part of black metal, because that's what kind of got me into black metal partially. Of course, the other part was music. But before even I got to listen to black metal in the early 90s, I already was like full of ideas. The ideology was there, but I was like just this dumb metalhead, you know, focusing on thrash metal and death metal and who knows what. And back then, you know, everything was kind of new. When you're a teenager and you're exploring different genres, You don't always even know what the fuck the genre is. I mean, you're a teenager, nobody...
You want something extreme.
Yeah, you're just going for different bands, and beat bands like Slayer or Metallica or the big names, they kind of started, showing what's in the pit, the underground.
Yeah,
and
all those trash bands started really extreme.
Yeah, I mean, and they gave a lot of ideas. I mean, whether we're talking about Venom or Bathory or Slayer or whatever, I mean, they kind of were, inspiring a lot of those older bands. So suddenly when I was like, hey, these guys are actually singing about the very topics I'm interested in, like these beat, and I really...
Was there a particular band that
got the... I don't really know. I mean,
got you into the direction of black metal, so to speak?
Well...
you had the typical background like most people have.
Yeah.
First heavy metal, then thrash, then death
Yeah.
metal. Then there's usually a band that...
Yeah, but I don't really know what's the like. I have no idea what the first black metal band was when I first. I know that Bathory was one of the first ones, because a friend from school I knew, lived almost next door. He would give me some of the Bathory CDs. You need to listen to this stuff. But then I also remember, interestingly, it wasn't all about Norwegian black metal, even though, of course, big ones. I know. I mean, for example, Rotting Christ was one of the first ones.
All right. First album is this.
Yeah. And this was, I don't know, hard to say which exact year, but I'm saying it's roughly 1993, 1994, probably 1994, I'm guessing. And I was exploring this local record shop. I remember, for instance, seeing Enslaved's Frost, and seeing these certain Viking names, and I grew up with this shit. I mean, I was reading the stuff. So suddenly these Viking stories, these stories related to Viking gods, the mythology, and all that stuff, that kind of got combined with the anti-religious thoughts, and the temptation of these satanic ideas and all that stuff. All these came overflowing. Suddenly, hey, these are the things that clicked. I mean, of course, I love bands like Bull Thrower. I mean, it's one of my death metal favorites. But that was about war. That wasn't about, these religions which I already loathed so much. So suddenly there were bands like, hey, this is Darkthrone. Check out their lyrics. This is the Marduk. This is Immortal. And I'm like, fuck, this is exactly what I'm looking for, but I didn't know where to search. Because, I mean, obviously, back then there was no internet.
Pretty much
you couldn't just fucking Google and hey, what is the anti-Christian music? So even though it would be later on kind of obvious, you could start with Venom and Bathory and Celtic Frost and all that stuff, but there were no older guys who were like, hey, Jerry, check out this stuff. You need to check out this stuff because they are the originators. You just went whatever you got in your hands, and then you would go through the liner notes, the lyrics, and you couldn't even read interviews because we didn't know about zines. We barely had heard of tape trading, but then the doors started open. It was like floodgates.
Were you into that whole thing?
When you were kind of, if you're fucking overwhelmed with everything. And then, of course...
Did you spread the demo a lot?
Well, not much, because we were kind of newbies. We were making the obvious newbie mistakes.
You had flyers, maybe.
Well, we didn't even get that much of an idea. So, for example, I think some of the first interviews related to black metal, for instance. I don't know what the magazine is. Was it Kerrang, Metal Hammer, who knows what? But I remember it was about Vikernes and Euronymous stuff, because that was, of course, all over the place. Arsons, murder.
Yeah, they had a front page.
Yeah. That was big. And when you have all these elements of danger, I mean, not realizing that we're basically the same age that those guys, because we always kind of thought if you're listening to these and these bands, they might be at least a couple of years older guys. But no, they were guys like me. I'm 1975. And later on I will find okay, these are the exactly same ideas. I just came a little bit later.
It's hard to see with the makeup sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah. But so suddenly these things they started to make sense. Cannibal Corpse, which sing about fucking gore and death and murder. And I was that's quite okay. It's an interesting horror story in a way and all that stuff. But that lacks the ideology. That lacks the core essence, what we are talking about. Fighting the religions and fighting all this bullshit and explaining what kind of burns inside our hearts. It's kind of a flame that people in own death metal or doom or thrash metal would never understand. Thrash metal would be way too much about society. Hey, we have 7 million people.
In the wrong direction.
Yeah, okay, this is interesting, but not my thing.
Did this new enthusiasm, did it make you disband all the other bands like the death metal bands, did it lose the value for you?
No. It was just like I already said it in the 90s to many of my friends. I always had like this one leg in the death metal department and also thrash, and one leg in the black metal department. I always described it like this. Sometimes, you know, everybody knows this back in the days when it was, are you true black metal? These kind of, which seem kind of ridiculous nowadays.
Satanists?
Yeah, these kind of talks happened, and sometimes it was like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I don't have to prove myself to you. I mean, if you want to prove, we can go into a fight and whatever. But at the same time, while I was like very, very seriously taking all this stuff, I always had my goofier part in my head who's like, hey, just relax a fucking bit, you know, like listen to some music, because that's essentially the stuff. I mean, if you only want to say these things, you could fucking write a book, write poems.
But was there some kind of environment with a lot of people in your area that were into this?
No, actually, it was hard to find people who were like-minded in black metal.
So it makes you feel even more...
yeah, kind of a loner in that sense. Because a lot of band guys, I mean, metal guys I knew already, they somewhere into doom, somewhere into thrash or death metal. Black metal was a little bit like off. So I didn't actually have friends when I was like late teens or early 20s who were into this kind of stuff. I mean, I couldn't really go to my friends and, hey, check out this Burzum, or check out this fucking Dark Throne album, hey, or have you heard Birtles in the North? And they would be like, I don't listen to that kind of stuff. They would be like, hey, but a lot of my good friends, like, they would go as heavy as grunge. They would say Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, whatever. Like, they were not interested in the music with the growly vocals or raspy vocals or upside.
Yeah, for them there's a limit.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, fine. I mean, that's fine. I'm okay being the weird guy in the room. I don't mind it. But then, eventually, like when I got recruited for Nightside, there was a kind of a weird house party. Like back in the days when we actually people, you know, had those house parties. People would be like drinking booze, whatever, housewarming party. Then this guy was like checking out my shirt. I had this Dark Funeral shirt, from the first album. Big fucking pentagram kind of a logo and Dark Funeral. This guy would like stare me down like, are you listening to that kind of music? Oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. We started talking about, you know, how I got into black metal, what kind of black metal I was listening to, and I don't know the details, I don't remember them, but somehow it came up that I'm actually being a vocalist in for example, a death metal band before, and some kind of a punkier crossover weird band. So he was like, we need vocalists. Oh, yeah. I would join the band. The bass player were actually quite quickly out of the band, but this is how I met the drummer. And while I'm not going to say
I thought this situation was going to go in another direction, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so suddenly we're like, hey, you and me, we talk about the same language. And we also enjoy listening to this kind of music. So it's not just about the ideological sides, but we're actually like into the very core of the whole fucking thing. Like, you know, you could see the guy, you know, like, hey, he has an inverted cross around his neck, me too, kind of stuff. Like, we're fucking bonding over this one. So suddenly, boom, it was blooming. And then we would bring other guys. Like there was this guy living in the same building as me. Same school, but in a different class. This was around 1996. And I was like, hey, you also play instrument. He was bass player. And then now the original bass player was gone only after a couple of months. We need a bass player. And you know black metal. He already had done his part of arson.
Good timing.
And also, he was a lot into tape trading and cult releases. He would join the band. And then suddenly, I don't know how, but this network started to happen. Essentially, someone would leave the band, but then you would know more people and, you know, things started to happen. And this was in my home city when there was barely any kind of black metal.
And your home city is?
Yeah, Turku, which is the southwestern city.
Yeah, I know.
And while it has its home turf for bands like Archgoat, already since 1990 or so. But that wasn't active at the time anymore. It had already gone, only to come back later. But back then there was not much. I'm not saying we were the only ones, but there was only a couple of bands, maybe, with us. And everything else related to Finnish black metal was happening in other cities, which obviously we hadn't much of a contact. But then internet started to, making its breakthrough. You would find like IRC channels. They would meet guys from Horna and all that stuff. Then you would go see shows. Like, for example, when Emperor played, I think the first time in 1997 in Helsinki. And soon bands like Satyricon and stuff like that would follow. Then you would go to those shows and you would meet another people. Hey, this guy. And suddenly you're like, hey, there's a whole fucking scene of these people. Like, but where were they like 3 years earlier? So it was suddenly like, how is this happening? One day, jack shit. A couple of years later, the floodgates are open. And suddenly you will feel and find these people and say,
realize there's a network across the whole world.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, in this respect, it's easy to envy whatever you people in Norway had going on. Because you had Bergen. You're from Bergen. All the bands from Norway seem to be from Bergen. I mean, of course, there were few exceptions. Yeah, but still, And we had none of that shit. All the bands in Finland were scattered, like from Ibel, Nazarene, Beherit, Belial. We had this talk. Yeah. They were from the north, like 600 kilometers away. You had a couple of bands from Helsinki, you had some bands from Lappeenranta, the smaller cities, but things were scattered. So wherever you would meet these other black metal guys, the same like-minded people, you would have to go to the shows. And of course, it was mostly bands like Gorgoroth. They played at the very first Tuska and headlining there. And there you would meet more and more the same kind of people because your friends of friends would introduce you to more friends of friends. And
the door is open.
Yeah, and then, of course, you get to have your first gigs. I don't even remember where.
Yeah, what was your first gig?
With Nightside, I think it was 1997.
But where?
In Turku. Yeah, most of our early shows were there, but once you get to know a little bit of people, then you would go to another city.
Was there like a typical place for this kind of music to be played? Or?
Really, really small, venues run by people who had, I think, some kind of a connection to local university. Like they would have their own, some kind of underground clubs which would host different kind of music. So they were really, really small venues, only a handful of people, say, 50 or so. So they was really, really small, but
that's how it starts.
That's how it starts. And of course, we didn't even know it would be possible to have bigger shows until, of course, you would see bands like Gorgoroth and Emperor and stuff like that.
Yeah, did you play support for other bands, or did you have your own,
we were basically like the first small bands with the evening, and all the bands were small back in the days. I mean...
Oh, maybe the most important question of this interview. Do you know what time it is?
We're gonna check it out. It's 20 to midnight.
Which means I have a show in 20 minutes.
Yeah, do you have a final question before we let you do the show?
Yeah, okay. What is your favorite Matti Nykänen album from the 90s?
Oh, this is totally super.
Or Samurai?
I can say I never really listened to full Matti Nykänen album, but I know he was a very, very peculiar vocalist.
Magnificent fellow.
I'm really
92 and 93. So
I'm really surprised that you have these.
Come on, you're not that surprised.
I'm
surprised you don't have it.
No, I'm kind of weird in that sense.
So this was Rauta. We have to cut it a bit short this time, but hopefully part 2.
Hopefully part 2, and someday Taake part 3.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Now you know a little bit more about this weird person behind the stuff, and now you get to find his new talents as an interviewer. So, part 3.
Maybe you should go and do the show.
Yes. Hey, you go do the show, and this is Happening Steel Chaos 2023.
Something like that.